On the night of December 7, 1988, a 20-year-old factory worker named Masaru Furuta was driving through the mountains near the old Inunaki Tunnel in Fukuoka Prefecture. A group of young men stopped his car. What happened next became one of the most brutal murders in modern Japanese history. The attackers beat him, forced him back into his own vehicle, poured gasoline over his body, and set him on fire while he was still alive. His burned remains were later discovered in the mountains near the abandoned tunnel. The crime shocked Japan. But over the years, something else began drawing people back to Inunaki. Not the murder. The stories. Drivers claimed they heard voices inside the abandoned tunnel. Others reported seeing figures standing at the far end of the darkness before disappearing. Some said their car engines stalled the moment they entered. Others refused to return after a single visit. Today, the old Inunaki Tunnel is known around the world as one of Japan's most haunted locations. But separating fact from folklore is far more difficult than most people realize. Just after 2 a.m. on a summer night, a university student from Fukuoka drove to the old Inunaki Tunnel with two friends after hearing it was Japan's most haunted road. They parked outside the entrance, switched off the engine, and started recording. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then one of them noticed someone standing near the opposite end of the tunnel. A woman dressed in white. She was simply standing there, facing them. Thinking it was another visitor, the driver flashed his headlights. The figure disappeared. It was simply gone. The three friends searched both ends of the tunnel before leaving. They found no footprints, no parked cars, and no one else on the mountain road. The account was later shared on a Japanese paranormal website, becoming one of the stories most often repeated whenever people talk about Inunaki Tunnel. So what is Inunaki Tunnel? And why has an abandoned road in Fukuoka become one of Japan's most feared paranormal locations? Before the ghost stories, there were actually two Inunaki tunnels. The first tunnel opened in 1949, cutting through the mountains of Fukuoka Prefecture. At the time, it was the shortest route between Fukuoka City and Kitakyushu, and thousands of vehicles passed through it every week. By the mid-1970s, traffic had increased beyond what the narrow mountain road could safely handle. In 1975, a wider and more modern tunnel was opened beside it. Almost overnight, the old tunnel was abandoned. No more traffic. No lights. Year after year, the entrance became overgrown, the concrete cracked, and the inside remained permanently dark. Eventually, access to the old road was blocked to keep vehicles and trespassers out. Today, local drivers still pass through the new Inunaki Tunnel every day. Nothing unusual. The stories, the ghosts, the voices, the unexplained sightings are almost all connected to the old tunnel, the one left behind in the mountains nearly 50 years ago. On December 6, 1988, the abandoned tunnel became the scene of one of Japan's most brutal murder cases. The victim was Koichi Umeyama, a 20-year-old factory worker. After finishing work that evening, he was driving home through Fukuoka when his car stopped at a traffic light. A group of 5 young men walked over and asked if they could borrow his car. He refused. Instead of walking away, they dragged him out of the driver's seat and beat him unconscious in the middle of the road. The attackers forced him back into his own vehicle and drove into the mountains toward the old Inunaki Tunnel. What happened inside the tunnel shocked investigators across Japan. The men continued beating him, poured gasoline over his body, and set him on fire while he was still alive. The following day, police found Koichi's body inside the old Inunaki Tunnel. He had suffered extensive burns. The investigation moved quickly. The attackers had already begun boasting about the killing, telling people they had burned a man alive. When police questioned the group, all 5 eventually confessed to the crime. They were arrested and later convicted. For the victim's family, it was the end of a life. For Inunaki Tunnel, it was the beginning of something else. The murder spread across Japan through newspapers and television. The abandoned tunnel, once forgotten after the new road opened, suddenly became known nationwide. Within a few years, people were no longer visiting because of the road. They came because they wanted to see the place where the murder happened. And that is when the ghost stories began to multiply. The murder turned the old tunnel into one of Japan's most notorious locations. People didn't come to admire the scenery. They came because they wanted to stand where the crime had happened. By the early 1990s, late-night visitors had become a common sight. University students, ghost hunters, street racers, curious tourists. Many brought video cameras, hoping to capture something unusual inside the tunnel. Some left saying they heard footsteps echoing behind them. Others claimed they heard a man's voice calling from deeper inside, even though nobody else was there. Several visitors reported seeing a white figure standing near the entrance. When they walked closer, it disappeared into the darkness. None of these reports were ever verified, but the story spread rapidly through magazines, television specials, and, later, internet forums devoted to Japan's haunted places. Before long, Inunaki Tunnel was no longer remembered only as the site of a murder. It had become one of the places people visited to test whether Japan's most famous ghost stories were true. By the 2000s, Inunaki Tunnel had become a regular destination for Japanese paranormal television crews. One of the best-known examples came from TV Tokyo's horror special, Saikyo Aizo Nonstop, where a film crew visited a tunnel widely known in Japan as a place where something always appears. During filming, one of the cast members took a photograph of the tunnel ceiling. When the crew returned to their vehicle and reviewed the image, they noticed what appeared to be a human face looking back at the camera. Nobody had seen anyone inside the tunnel while the photograph was taken. The image quickly became one of the program's most talked about moments, and the production claimed several staff members later reported feeling unwell after the investigation. Whether the photograph captured anything paranormal has never been proven, but the program introduced Inunaki Tunnel to a new generation. Since then, thousands of people have traveled there with cameras of their own, hoping to experience the same thing. One of the biggest misunderstandings about Inunaki Tunnel is the story of Inunaki Village. According to the legend, there is a hidden village deep inside the mountains, completely cut off from modern Japan, where laws do not apply and outsiders are not welcome. But there is no official record of any village with that name existing in the area. Japanese government maps show roads, forests, and mountain terrain, but no settlement matching the description. Most researchers trace the origin of the story back to online message boards in the 1990s, where anonymous posts began describing a forbidden village beyond the tunnel. Over time, those posts were repeated, rewritten, and expanded until they became part of the same mythology surrounding Inunaki Tunnel itself. If the tunnel is real, the village is where the legend begins. According to one of Japan's most famous urban legends, somewhere beyond the old Inunaki Tunnel lies a hidden settlement known as Inunaki Village. The story claims the village has been cut off from the outside world for generations. According to one of the best-known versions of the legend, Inunaki Village was never abandoned. People still live there, but they chose to cut themselves off from the outside world decades ago. The story claims the only road leading into the village is hidden deep in the mountains beyond the old tunnel. Near the entrance stands a weathered wooden sign that reads, "The Constitution of Japan does not apply beyond this point." From there, the legend says everything changes. Electricity is unreliable. Modern communication barely exists. Outsiders are not welcomed. Some versions claim the villagers survived by hunting and farming, living much as they did generations ago. Others describe a community shaped by years of isolation, where strangers are treated as a threat rather than a visitor. The darkest part of the legend concerns those who never returned. According to the story, anyone who enters the village after dark risks disappearing without explanation. Some are said to hear voices calling their names from empty houses. Others claim they were followed through the streets by silent figures who never came close enough to be seen clearly. No bodies were ever found. No missing person case has ever been officially linked to the village. Yet the legend insists that once someone crosses into Inunaki Village, they are no longer expected to leave. The legend of Inunaki Village has been told for decades. But when researchers began tracing its history, they found something unexpected. There really was a place called Inunakidani Village. Historical records show that the village was established in 1691, deep in the mountains of what is now Fukuoka Prefecture. It remained there for nearly 2 centuries before becoming part of a larger municipality during Japan's administrative reforms in 1889. Years later, the construction of Inunaki Dam flooded much of the old valley, and the remaining residents were relocated. The original village disappeared beneath the reservoir. That part is history. The version people know today can only be traced back to 1999. That year, Nippon TV received an anonymous letter with the title, "The Village in Japan That Isn't Part of Japan." The letter claimed that a narrow mountain road near the old Inunaki Tunnel led to a secluded village unknown to the outside world. According to the writer, a weathered sign stood at the entrance. "The Constitution of Japan does not apply beyond this point." Beyond that sign, the letter claimed, was a community where outsiders were never meant to enter. No official investigation ever found such a village. No government records support the claim. Yet the anonymous letter spread rapidly across Japan. As the story moved from television to internet forums, new details were added. The isolated village became more violent. The warnings became darker. The legend grew with every retelling. Today, many people believe the tunnel and the village are part of the same story. In reality, they come from 2 very different histories. One is a real place that can be found in historical records. The other began with an anonymous letter that nobody has ever been able to verify. The tunnel is real. The murder case is real. But Inunaki Village belongs to a different category entirely. It is folklore, not history. So if Inunaki Village is a modern internet legend, and much of the supernatural detail has no official record, the question becomes unavoidable. Why does Inunaki Tunnel still carry its reputation? Part of the answer is the environment itself. The old tunnel sits deep in the mountains of Kyushu, far from main roads and regular traffic. Even during the day, the entrance remains dark, damp, and isolated. Sound behaves strangely inside it. A single step can echo back as something louder, closer, and unfamiliar. But there is also something else. The murder in 1988 gave the location a real-world weight that most urban legends never have. Once a place is connected to a violent death, every unexplained experience that follows feels easier to attach to it. And over time, the tunnel stops being just an abandoned structure. It becomes a place where people arrive already expecting something to be there. Today, the old Inunaki Tunnel is still there. Closed off to vehicles, hidden deep in the mountains. Surrounded by warnings and barriers to stop people from entering. There is no confirmed evidence of anything supernatural inside. No official record of curses. No verified reports of paranormal activity. Only a real location, a real crime, and decades of stories layered on top of each other. What remains is not proof of ghosts, but the way people react when they stand in front of the entrance. Because sometimes, a place does not need to do anything unusual. It only needs to be remembered the right way. If you were there tonight, you would go in. or you would turn back? Write it in the comments. And the stories that formed around them. Subscribe if you want the next one.